on a pitch that could be considered suitable for cows to graze on, the Timbers did pretty well to come away from Houston with a goalless draw. Welcome back, new and returning viewers, to yet another video. Today we're going to be doing a match recap of the game against Houston Dynamo that happened on Monday night. It was the first leg of our MLS Western Conference semi-finals, and then we're also going to be doing a match preview to the game that's going to be happening on Sunday against Houston Dynamo, the second leg at Providence Park. I decided to merge the two videos together. As you know, they kind of link off well with each other, considering the injuries that the Timbers actually sustained in the game on Monday night. I'll be talking about that later on in the video. But yeah, a bit of a match preview and a match recap of the games. So yes, as I said in the intro, the Timbers come away from Houston with a goalless draw. A fantastic result and a fantastic performance to match it, considering the circumstances, which I'll talk about now. The beginning one, the main one that everybody is talking about on Twitter, is the pitch. My goodness, Houston, that thing is, to be honest, embarrassing for the whole of MLS. I mean, you had players playing on that, but you could see the divots in the ground. It was horrendous. Cows could honestly be grazing on that field. Okay, maybe that's a bit of a stretch too far, but I've seen my local recreational ground in my village better standard than that. Yes, it was flat, but it was so bobbly. There were so many divots. All the ground was being turned up during the game, and you know, it just wasn't fair on the players. You know, this is the MLS Western Conference semi-finals. This is showcasing the MLS and the best what the Western Conference has. And it's just not good enough for the MLS, to be honest. You know, if you've got someone that's not a fan of football, you know, watching this game, tuning into the MLS for the first time, and they see this, the professional league in the United States, and they see this pitch, they're not really going to want to tune in and watch it. If, you know, the quality, if it's affecting the quality of football, then something has to be done about it. You know, the MLS have to do something about it, in my opinion. They have to reach out to Houston and say, look, if you can't maintain your field, you know, in the hot weather of Houston, because I accept that is difficult conditions, but you know, they've got professional groundsmen working on it every single day, and if they can't, you know, keep up to good standards, then why don't they go to an artificial surface just like the Timbers do? However, you may be sat there saying, Tom, you're just using the pitch as an excuse for a poor Timbers performance. I'm not. To be honest, the Timbers still played fantastic, but what I'm saying is it's affecting both teams and the quality of football. This is the semi-finals of the MLS Cup, and you know, if it's affecting their performances, then something has to be done about it. You know, there's times in the game where you've got a winger who wants to use their quick feet, who wants to use their pace, but they simply can't because the pitch is letting them down. You know, they're trying to do skills, make the game entertaining, but the ball bobbles up and they lose control of it. Or for example, you look when someone's trying to take a shot, the ball bobbles up and you know, the shot goes high and wide. Or for example, in Nakbi's case, in the 5th minute, what could have been a turning point in the game, the ball come across him, his standing foot went down, it kind of just buckled underneath the ground, and then his shot went wide. You know, things like that, when it's affecting the performance of the players and the two teams and the overall entertainment of the game, and hence probably the reason why it was a 0-0 draw, you know, something has to be done about it. So I touched upon about how the pitch affected the Timbers' performance and the overall entertainment of the game, but I'll also touch upon the injuries that the Timbers sustained during the game and actually before it, and how that affected the performance. So before the game even began, the Timbers were down 2 starting players. This was Sebastian Blanco and David Guzman. Now a few days before the game, Sebastian Blanco was involved in a cooking accident where he poured boiling water over his foot and got 2nd-degree burns. Now Club Porter in a press conference a few days ago said that the burns were pretty horrific, and you know, he wouldn't be featuring this game and possibly not in the next game, the second leg against Houston. And then David Guzman sprained his LCL, his ligament in his knee, in the Vancouver game. Again, Club Porter didn't really say before the game much about it, whether he'll be fit or not, so it was kind of 30 minutes before when the team sheet was announced. Everyone was kind of surprised not to see Guzman on it. As for during the game, the Timbers sustained 3 injuries. They were forced into 2 substitutions in the first half as Diego Chara went off injured, breaking his 5th metatarsal in his foot. That's the little bone. You know, it's pretty unfortunate, so unfortunate for him. You know, he's one of our key players, one of our most consistent players in the central defensive midfield roles, and you know, it's just so disappointing to know that he is. I know Club Porter today confirmed that he's going to be out for the rest of the season. You know, fingers crossed, a speedy recovery for Diego Chara, so he's going to be featuring at the start of next year. It's just such a horrific injury. But do you go back to blaming the pitch? Is the pitch the reason for this injury? Because, you know, when you watch it, he just went down. There was no tackle, there was nothing, like no one stamped him or anything like that. He just went down. Did he roll his ankle? Did he land awkward because of the pitch? I don't know. It's the questions that have to be asked, and you know, the MLS have to do something about it. But anyway, later on in the half, Luis Mabiala went off the pitch with a hip injury. You know, Club Porter in the press conferences after the game said it's a hip injury, we'll have to see how it goes. Something like that. So, you know, that's just disappointing. Hip injuries, they're really difficult. You can rest them and you can try and play through them, but ultimately you're only going to do yourself worse. And then later on in the second half of the game, Darlington Nagbe came off the pitch with a hamstring or a calf strain. Nothing too major, but just a slight one. Didn't want to overdo it. Clive Porter said, you know, he just wanted to take him off because he didn't want to risk him. So hopefully he will be fit for the Houston game. I've seen it's a calf, seen it's a hamstring, you know, over the different pieces of the internet, so not really too sure there. But in the press conference today, I've just been watching, Clive Porter has said that all these players, apart from Chara, are kind of unsure as to whether they'll be, you know, fit and ready for the game. Depends as to whether they're in training tomorrow. Today they had a recovery session. Will they be in training tomorrow? But if not, they'll be preparing for the game as if they weren't there. And, you know, the Timbers have done that throughout the season when we've had players out. So Clive Porter is confident. I'm confident in the team. Even when we've got a weakened side, or what is deemed to be a weakened side when we're using our reserve players, we're still going into the game highly confident. So taking in those circumstances of the pitch being awful and of the Timbers' injuries, it really just highlights how brilliant this performance and result was. You know, the Timbers headed to Houston Dynamo, a fantastic home side. They posted the best home record in the Western Conference, scored 43 goals there all season. And, you know, before we went there, they'd only been kept off the score sheet once and only lost once. You know, so it's a fantastic result and just highlights the strength in depth that the Timbers have and how defensively solid we were in the game, you know. And that's a depleted squad. Yes, we weren't going forward all the time, but that's because we didn't have the likes of Blanco, Nagbe towards the end of the game, Chara starting those counter-attacks, you know. But nonetheless, we got the result, and it's a brilliant result to come away and take back to Providence Park. And, you know, the whole defence really just needs to get all the praise that they deserve from that performance. And, you know, I will touch upon it, specifically Alves Powell and Vitas on both wide back roles. Just superb performances, specifically Alves Powell, who got the man of the match and just deserved for me. I think he was unbelievable, and these last few games have really shown how matured he's actually recently got. You know, he stood up sometimes when recently, I think before at the start of the season, he would have dived in and maybe lost a foul, something like that, but a lot of the times he just stood up, he got the job done, and it was just brilliant to see that. You know, defensively and going forward, he was fantastic, and then Vitas on the other side offers such a physical threat going forward, and defensively, he was just brilliant. And, you know, the two guys in the middle, Marbiala before he was taken off, and Ridgewell captained the team so brilliantly, you know, was getting them up, was telling people what to do, but then also behind him was Jeff Attinella, who had another outstanding game. Yes, he didn't have to make so many big time saves, but he did the simple stuff brilliantly, and, you know, that's what I like about him. You know, he can come out and he makes them sort of saves, he makes just the basic stuff look really easy. You know, specifically in the 80th minute, I think it was, Houston had a very dangerous free kick situation, but Jeff Attinella just come out, caught the ball, and, you know, just calmed everyone down. That's what you're looking for from a keeper. You know, just props to the whole Timbers team and Clive Porter. You know, those substitutions he was forced into, you know, I feel like he made the right ones. Yes, the Timber players stepped up to the plate, but I think Clive Porter and the coaching staff also, you know, need to get a lot of praise. Yes, it's the players that get a lot of praise when they do well, but it's not really this coaching staff, and they're the ones that get berated when the Timbers aren't doing so well. So, you know, fantastic performance from all involved by the Portland Timbers. So now let's take a look at the key moments in the game. Now you may be thinking, Tom, there weren't any real chances, you know, any big goals or anything like that, but there was a lot of talking points. The first one came in the 5th minute. Diego Valera was down the left-hand side, found a bit of space, played a beautiful through ball to Darlington Nagbe, had quite a bit of space in front of him, bit of a one-on-one situation with Derek. The ball come across to me, looked to take it first time, put his standing foot down and then dragged the shot wide. Now if you take a look from the angle behind the goal, you can see when you slow it down that his foot seemed to give way on the turf, the poor turf that I've already mentioned. You know, it gave way, it put him off balance, and he dragged the shot wide. And, you know, it's just annoying because, you know, eliminate the poor surface, and that possibly goes in, and it makes the game really entertaining instead of a 0-0 draw, and, you know, a game that was limited to chances. So just going back on what I said earlier, how this affected the quality of the game, and it was just a chance that went by, and the game remained 0-0. The next big talking point came in the 32nd minute, when at least 4 Houston Dynamo went through onto a through ball into the penalty box, and then Marbiala from the side made a fantastic scissor tackle. He got the ball and he didn't really get the man. Now you see scissor tackles inside the box being given before, but this one was different. He didn't take the man first, he cleanly got the ball and then got the man, in my opinion anyway. But the referee's view of the actual incident was kind of obstructed when you look at it from the camera angle behind him. You see Ridgewell run across him and he couldn't really see, so he's kind of unsure, but all the Houston players appealed, and, you know, maybe if you couldn't really see so cleanly if whether Marbiala got the ball or not, you're probably going to give a penalty, and that's exactly what he did. However, thanks to the MLS being with VAR, all the Timbers players turned around and said, "You've got to review that. That's a crazy decision." You know, Mabiala was incensed, so he did review it. He went over the touchline, saw that Mabiala got the ball, and then reversed his decision. You know, fair play to referee. He's against a home crowd, makes a penalty call, but then goes back on it, and it was the right thing to do, and the Timbers got possession. However, you turn forward the clock to the 40th minute when Mattox went through on a through ball, and then Derek came out to meet him. Derek didn't get the ball. Mattox passed it around him, and Derek, what it looked like from one angle, cleanly got Mattox. The referee didn't give a penalty. You know, and I think, well, I haven't seen a camera angle, but I'm pretty sure he saw that clearly, and he just decided to not give anything. Even if you're unsure, in that situation where it looks so stone cold, why not give a penalty and then say, okay, we're going to review it? Because you can review penalty incidents, or maybe not even blow for the penalty, but whilst the ball has gone out for a corner, he gave it as a corner when you could clearly see that Mattox kicked it out and not Derek, didn't get a palm to it. And, you know, so then just review it on the corner and then give a penalty, something like that. It just seemed ridiculous not to give anything or not even use VAR. It was crazy. And then I went to look at the highlights from the MLS website. In the 4 minutes highlights, this wasn't even included. Like, what on earth? How could you not include this incident? It was probably, other than the original VAR decision for Houston, you know, this was the biggest talking point in the game, because if we get the penalty and we're going up, you know, it's completely different. But the fact that they didn't even show it, maybe it's hiding the fact that they know that it was an awful refereeing decision and something that they should have improved on. And, you know, VAR was supposed to stop this, but it hasn't. And to be honest, it's the first time I've seen VAR not used correctly in the league. I don't watch every single MLS game, but this is the first one I've seen against Portland, or, you know, in a game involving Portland that's actually been used wrong. So disappointing there, but nonetheless, the game went into the half at 0-0. So moving on into the second half, and not a lot happened. Houston were really starting to mount the pressure on a depleted Timbers side that were forced into the substitutions. You know, and late in the game, they really were starting to apply the pressure on the Timbers, but they held strong. Already talked about Attinella making them, you know, he made one big time one-on-one save where he come out very quickly and beat the player before he could get a shot on. You know, he was claiming the ball fantastically, and the Timbers defended very well. Already talked about that. But yeah, the second half, not a lot happened, no real big chances, and the Timbers just defended well and didn't really have much going forward, but nonetheless got a fantastic result. The game ended as a 0-0 draw.